Hi everybody, and welcome back to this series of Headstrong, a podcast where I sit down with a variety of people in the public eye to talk to them about their life, but most importantly their experiences with vulnerability, to try and get you on a path to becoming headstrong, to believe in yourself, to talk about your vulnerabilities and reinforce your self-worth. This second series is a Rugby World Cup special, so I am sitting down exclusively with rugby players both past and present to talk to them about their experiences in the world of rugby and around it. On this week's episode of Headstrong, I sat down with a young and bright chap called Ollie Thorley. Ollie is the youngest debutant for Gloucester Rugby Club, where he made his first appearance at the age of 17. After 4 proper seasons at Gloucester, last year he was named Young Player of the Year as voted by the entire Premiership, and he was also called up for the England squad at the beginning of 2019. I had a really honest discussion with him, so I really hope you enjoy this inspiring episode. Ollie, thank you so much for joining me and chatting to me on this episode of Headstrong. It's really exciting to get you on, and I appreciate how busy the start of the season is, so thanks so much for giving up some time.
Oh, no, thank you very much, Louis, as well. I'm really looking forward to it, so
Great.
that'll be good.
Well, just before I start, I've got to ask you a quick question. So I got to chat to Ed Jackson in my first episode of Headstrong, and he told me that you might have a bit of a wacky middle name, and I don't want him to drop me in it here, but am I correct in saying that your middle name is Andromeda?
So there is a bit of a story there. Sort of officially it is Andromeda, but also officially it isn't. So it was. I think it was a New Year's a couple of years ago. I was with some of my friends at school, and the sort of cool guys that we are. They're all sort of kind of historians and stuff. They for some reason decided to change my middle name on Wikipedia, and there was a bit of to and throwing. Like Wikipedia sort of changed it back to my actual name, which is middle name, which is Andrew. But eventually Wikipedia gave up, and it sort of stuck. So Andromeda it is.
So it's nothing to do with the Andromeda Galaxy or anything in Greek mythology at all.
They thought, like, because obviously Andromeda was meant to be this sort of really beautiful person, and for some reason at the time I was missing a front tooth. So I had like sort of cuts on my face and things. So it was partly related to the Greek mythology. But they have assured me that if and when I do ever get married, that they'll be changing it by default. So at some point it will be on my passport as well. So that's just how it goes sometimes.
That's what close friends are for, I suppose.
It is, yeah.
So you're only 23, and this now must be your 5th season at Gloucester, I believe.
Yeah. So I think this is my 4th sort of full-time season. So I was fortunate to sort of start quite young when I was still at school.
So you were in fact the youngest person ever to have played for Gloucester at 17.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
It feels like a long time ago now. I was lined up in the centres alongside Mike Tyndall, so that was quite cool, and we sort of figured out that he was actually old enough to be my dad at the time. So I think he was maybe 36, 37, and I was just turned 17. To be fair, he still had a lovely touch. He was quite slow, but you could tell he was a good player.
It's funny that you mentioned royalty there, but we'll come back onto that maybe later in the podcast. I think.
Yeah.
Is Gloucester your dream club? Because you haven't lived here all of your life, but you moved to the Cotswolds whilst you were in still single figures. So I suppose it must have quite a special place in your heart.
It definitely does. I think certainly the sort of few years outside of school, like coming to Gloucester playing rugby, that was the thing that I always fell back on. It was like a very much a constant in my life. So I definitely feel like I owe a lot to Gloucester, and I mean the first rugby I played was for a local team as well. So coming all the way up, and Gloucester is always a thing that people look up to and aspire to. And I think as a county, Gloucestershire has that maybe more so than almost anywhere in the country, because there's not really many football teams here. Like rugby's where it's at. So to be a local guy to then go out and play at Kingsholm is like, I think it's coveted maybe a bit more so than at some of the other clubs. And I do think Kingsholm itself is special for me. It is the best stadium to play at in the Premiership, bar none.
Do you think you're biased at all?
I mean, I inevitably I am biased, but but also I think if you ask other players, like what's the loudest like sort of crowd you played in front of, and often it'll be in front of the Shed on a Friday night, and that's and it is funny how you can go to some stadiums which are enormous, like obviously the Ricoh's a bit bigger and Welford Road is bigger, and they do have their intimidation factor, but there's something about the intimacy of the crowd literally being on top of you at the Shed that I don't think you can replicate in a bigger stadium. So
totally. So Ollie, you were very lucky, I suppose, to attend some pretty amazing schools when you were growing up. Whilst you did go on to captain your school 15, when you were 17, 18, what is your first memory of rugby? And do you remember when you really first, fell in love with the sport?
Yeah. So the first time I ever played rugby was actually for my local club. So when I was younger, I was quite shy, like all the way through my teens and things. And one of my friends, I think it maybe was under 8s, joined a team called Stow on the Wold, and and the only reason I actually went along was because he was there. So I sort of went along and figured out, sort of realised I was quite fast. Quite strong, a pretty good athlete. So it kind of just went from there, and we actually ended up winning the county cup that year. So that was really the catalyst for me sort of falling in love with rugby.
So you mentioned just then that perhaps you weren't the most confident of young people. Did perhaps rugby and the sport kind of give you that self-confidence to grow into who you are today?
It certainly took its time, but I definitely think it has. Interestingly, like when I was at school, I wasn't necessarily like the stereotypical sporty kid. I quite like to be sat in the library just as much as I did on the rugby, be out on the rugby pitch. So I guess I didn't really conform to a stereotype in that sense, but I think ultimately, and particularly in the last sort of 2-3 years, rugby has really allowed me to express myself much more so than I ever used to, both on the pitch and off it. So that is often the power of sport, isn't it? It's a great platform for people to both inspire but also be inspired themselves.
Totally. I mean, I know from my own personal experience as well that being at school, they really push you to the limit, especially at these, top end schools. They really push you. Did you ever get to a point where perhaps you were being pushed so much, whether maybe that was at club as a youngster or at school, where you actually almost fell out of love with the sport?
Yeah, I can actually think of a specific moment. Actually, it was when I was probably 13 or 14, and I'd sort of I'd said to my local club that I was going to be playing for them on a Sunday, and it just so happened that at school they'd organised a tournament on the Sunday as well, and with the school being the school, and because I had a scholarship and everything, they were like, well, you've got to play for the school and things. So I was told you're not allowed to play for your local club. But I was really conflicted because I'd promised to the guys at my local team at Stow that I'd play. It was an important county cup game. It was a quarter final, and I knew that I'd be able to have some kind of influence on the game. And I think being put in that position whereby I was told, I was almost put in a position where I was almost expected to let down my friends, I found really difficult. And I mean, in the end, I ended up actually playing both.
Well, there you go.
Which but it wasn't an ideal scenario because
it's a difficult situation to put a young adult in, I suppose.
Yeah, because I think I was only just turned 14. So I was in a position whereby I didn't want to let my friends down. I didn't want to let my school down. But I think sometimes a bit of pragmatism would be better in those scenarios. Like, the pressure at school was pretty intense at times, particularly because of the scholarship and I think for that it just sometimes did get to me a bit.
Success came at a young age for you. You were deputy head boy at school. You played England under-18s, you played England under-20, and then, as already mentioned, you were the youngest ever debutant for Gloucester. But did this early success affect your mindset and approach to schoolwork whilst you were still at school?
I mean, at times it was difficult to balance. It was. I was very fortunate with some of the teachers that I had. That they really did help me out a huge amount. But my tutor was a lady called Jo Deutsch Harrison, and she saved me a few times. So I was lucky in the support that school gave me and that people around me gave me as well. So, there was a bit of a crunch point actually where I think Gloucester was sort of pushing for me to come in and train a bit more, and I think in the back of my mind I wasn't quite ready to do that. I wanted to get my A-levels done and sorted first, and the same thing happened with my GCSEs as well. There was pressure for me to play on England under-16. I was doing England under-17s as well, so I kind of just made the decision just to just take a slight step back from the rugby and just focus on getting my grades first. And I'm really, really glad I did that because I think in sport, ultimately, if you always believe that you're good enough, and you kind of keep your composure and keep your focus on the end goal, it means that all those sort of trials and tribulations along the way don't really matter.
Yeah, definitely.
Like people get to where they are in various different sports through so many different avenues. So I'm glad that I was able to get the kind of schoolwork and rugby balance right.
For sure. I mean, you've mentioned your friends previously there as well. But was there ever an occasion when you were at school where you found yourself perhaps on the receiving end of perhaps some jealousy from other peers, or even maybe some stick or chat from your friends because, you were spending time away from school, whether that was in England camps or in club camps? Was there ever an occasion where perhaps it became a little fractious?
I think most of it was just a bit like it was. Well, I certainly took it just as banter. So.
I suppose they were probably grateful to have the England under-18s captain playing at school.
That was that did benefit them a tiny bit at times. But to be fair, most of my friends were very supportive, and they do still tease me a bit at the moment and stuff. But I actually quite like that. I think it keeps you grounded. It reminds you that ultimately we're just playing a game. It is a way of life. Don't get me wrong, but it is just a game. So I think people sort of bring you back down to level one is actually quite good sometimes. So that was never really something that affected me too much.
When you left school, I think I'm correct in saying that you perhaps found yourself torn slightly, because I know that you loved history, but you'd already played for Gloucester, and you found yourself in a tricky situation where you could easily follow the avenue of university or playing professional rugby. Did you find that decision difficult, and do you regret not going to university, or do you see that as still a future plan?
I definitely would love to go to university, and hopefully in the near future. At the time when I left school, it was a very difficult thing to weigh up. There were a number of factors. Obviously, the pool of university for me was big, like from an academic perspective, from the classic kind of coming of age sort of ideal that we put uni as. So I think it was a difficult thing to balance out, and also at the time there was some sort of family issues going on. So my parents were going through a bit of a sticky patch, which culminated in them getting divorced and stuff. But it went on for quite a long time. So actually, if I'm being completely honest, that was the ultimate reason that I stayed around, was because I felt I needed to be there to support my brothers and my mum. And I'm really glad I did, because that obviously led to sort of having a shot at rugby, and it kind of went well from there. And actually, to be fair, I think had I not had rugby through that period, I think I'd have found it a lot more difficult. So I've got rugby to thank. Yeah.
Well, I've got no doubt that I'm sure your brothers and your parents as well were thankful that you stuck around as well. Have you got, Are they older or younger brothers?
They're both younger. Yeah. So So it was. So I kind of, I guess I had to take on a few more roles and responsibilities when I was probably about 17, 18 at home.
Did you find that responsibility quite challenging at that age, or did you feel that you were already slightly independent because of the success that you'd had in your professional career?
I think I was independent to a degree, but like a lot of 17, 18-year-olds, you're also still very often very reliant on your parents for a lot of things, aren't you? Even more so in our generation than previous generations. So I guess it probably meant I had to grow up a tiny bit quicker. Certainly on an emotional level. So I think I was prepared to a degree, but it sort of a lot of it was I was just kind of learning as I went along. Yeah.
Just stepping away from your family life there. Well, I hope everything as well at the moment is now great with your family.
I have no doubt that
it is as well.
It's found a new sort of I don't know what the word would be. It's found a new.
Harmony?
Harmony, yeah. Harmony is a very good word, yeah.
Great. Well, that's really good. I'm pleased to hear it. Hi, everybody. Sorry to interrupt the podcast. Just a quick word from our two sponsors. Headstrong is very fortunate to have found two amazing sponsors and supporters for Season 2 of Headstrong, the Rugby World Cup special, forming a brilliant partnership between Headstrong, our chosen charity Restart Rugby, and themselves. They cover between them all aspects of global insurance, and both have strong historical ties to the wider rugby and well-being communities. Ascot Group is a Bermuda-domiciled global specialist in insurance and reinsurance, built on a foundation of underwriting expertise, but with a culture of collaboration, dedication, empowerment and accountability that is the fabric of the company. Their integrity is reinforced by a strong track record and dedication to clients, brokers and partners. For more information on Ascot Group, visit www.ascotgroup.com. BMS are an entrepreneurial, agile, specialist insurance and reinsurance broker that prides itself on their reputation for exceptional client service and position as one of the leading global brokers. For more information on BMS, visit www.bmsgroup.com. Now, back to the podcast. So, you left school and you found this opportunity, and fortunately rugby was keeping you, motivated perhaps, and keeping everything going. But how did you find this step up from junior rugby to the professional scene, even from, that England under-18s level to, the Gloucester changing room? What were the challenges that you faced from that step up?
It was that's kind of the journey, isn't it? So you don't really think about it too much when you're doing it. It sort of just happens, and you get a feel for the game, and often you realise actually, this is still the same game. Yeah, there may be bigger guys are running at you or whatever, or the game's quicker, or whatever it might be. It's more physical, but it's still ultimately rugby. So you just kind of adapt with it, and sometimes you get caught out as well. So, and that's a big part of it. Is I think when I was much younger, I used to sort of think over my mistakes so much, like, to the degree where I'd maybe made a mistake 2 or 3 days ago, and I was still sort of annoyed at myself about it. Not like kind of consciously, but subconsciously, I was still giving myself a hard time about it. So so I think I definitely learnt as I went up the levels that you actually can't afford to do that because you've got to react to mistakes as quickly as possible.
So I suppose to a degree you were kind of learning on your feet as you went along.
Yeah, 100%. So
that's cool. And when you were full time at Gloucester, I suppose there must have been an initiation when you were welcomed in fully.
Yeah, well,
or is that something that we can't repeat?
It's sort of fairly well known locally, the milk challenge. So made slightly worse by the fact that I do have a sort of a milk intolerance as well. So I was pretty ill for about 2 or 3 days afterwards.
Oh no!
But I mean the general premise is you've got to try and down 8 pints of milk in 20 minutes without throwing up. It sounds attainable, but when you get to that seventh pint, you're thinking
at the next Gloucester social, is that going to be a fine because you told everyone that now?
No, it's I think it's fairly common knowledge.
Okay.
It's one of those.
I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble.
I definitely. I mean, if anything was going to risk my hair coming off again, then I wouldn't be saying it. So and that is the ultimate punishment. Is if you don't complete the challenge, it's your hair's removed. So.
I saw a couple of guys walking around, and I thought they were more than usual with their hair shaved off.
And you can always tell like someone that's bold but isn't meant to be bold, can't you? That they don't quite wear it with the confidence that a true bold person does.
Hanging their head slightly in shame.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, So. Yeah, we've got a fair few of those at the moment.
So when you got to Gloucester, you were in the dressing room and there were some pretty big names in terms of experience and quality of rugby. When you first arrived, were there any particular mentors or people that you really looked up to when you first arrived?
So there were kind of, obviously the coaches always are offering support and advice to guys, but within the playing group there was sort of 3 guys initially that really helped me, and one of them was Nick Wood. So we had a lift share with him and one of the other guys. Obviously Woody was here for sort of centuries. So he kind of showed me the way a bit. And then another was Paddy McAllister, who's just gone over to Connacht. So I'm very good friends with Paddy, and he kind of like because I was just like I was just come out of boarding school and things. I wasn't necessarily that streetwise. So he kind of helped me along the way in that respect. I went over to visit him in Galway a few weeks ago and things. So we still talk regularly and stuff. And he's got a wonderful young family as well. So.
Are you a godfather?
Not yet. Actually, I need to speak to him about that. But yeah, no, he's a really good, a really wonderful person. And then the third guy who's still in the current squad is Tom Marshall. So he's just a phenomenally gifted rugby player. He understands the game as well as anyone I played with. So he helped me a lot on the rugby side of things. Because although I was always a good athlete, I was quite raw, and I think my understanding of the game there was without doubt room for growth, and over the years we just sort of plugged away and stuff, and gradually we're getting there, and so he's been really wonderful for me from a rugby perspective, and we've become friends off the pitch as well. So those guys have helped me massively. And then more recently, like Johan Ackerman gave me loads of confidence. He sort of threw me in the deep end and believed in me to sort of go out and perform, and hopefully I sort of helped repay that the confidence he put in me a bit last year, and obviously I'll try and do that this year as well. So there'll be the main ones.
Just going off from what you've said there, and from when I got to speak to Danny earlier in the year, I think it's really important that clubs like these, you actually have a tight-knit group of players, but also off the field, your friends as well, and also the coaching staff are clearly more than coaches at times, and I think that's so obvious from the way that you guys played last season, and obviously the success that came with it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like the team motto is "Play to Inspire," which I think
Exactly.
is a brilliant.
It's on the wall
ethos
behind us.
It is, yeah. Be smart, play to inspire.
It's brilliant. Well, you mentioned last season there, which was pretty phenomenal, not just for the club, but for you in particular. As you say, you were chucked in the deep end to an extent. At the start of the season, you were injured, but then things got going, and then you won Player of the Month in November with some pretty awesome tries. Was that, at that time, a pretty pinch-yourself moment? You must have been like, things are picking up now, and there's momentum coming, and I'm playing the best rugby I've ever played. Was that pretty awesome?
It was really exciting, yeah. I'd been kind of building up all this frustration at the start of the season because I was sort of thinking I was going to be playing in the first game, and then just picked up a knock, and that was me for a few weeks, and I think on top of all that excitement that you build up over pre-season, I was going absolutely nuts. So when I got out on the pitch, I just wanted to frickin' whack someone, run round someone, do whatever. I've had so much energy, and to be honest, I don't think that energy's really gone. So some sort of that's it probably made things worse and just sort of snowballed. So. It was a really fun time, and I think I was enjoying and I still am enjoying my rugby more so than I probably ever have done. I was loving it, and it was great actually. There were like a few people like Danny was really helping me as well. Just teaching me a few sort of small things about how I can change my game and giving me confidence. And also met a lady called Margot Wells who helped sort of with my body and also did a lot of psychology work with me. So I've got those two to thank in part for that as well.
That's really interesting. So obviously Headstrong, there's quite a mental perspective on this podcast. That's interesting that you mentioned psychology there. What kind of work did you do to kind of progress your rugby mentally?
So we spoke at the start about like the ruminations that I had when I was younger, about thinking over mistakes, thinking over pretty much everything. And I think that was the first thing, was to try and address that, and I'm still guilty of it now, but we sort of looked at how I could be on the pitch but not think as much. I mean, obviously, when you're on the pitch, you need to be thinking about 1,001 things, but it all needs to just be natural, and you've got to get into the feel of the game and not be kind of making rash decisions and like I said, pondering things that have already happened. So it was basically just sort of taking away the layers of that overthinking, and like the way we did that was sort of twofold. I kind of developed a persona for myself when I went on the pitch, so just to try and shut things off. I was obviously still Ollie Thorley, but I was also something else.
What is that?
I like it's a very personal thing, so I don't actually share.
That's fair enough.
Share who the persona is, but
we can see it though when you're on the pitch.
That's hopefully, like it's like sometimes I'm like, frick, where is he? he goes missing. But,
a bit like the Hulk.
Yeah, a bit like the Hulk. Yeah. So that was the first stage of it, and then the second stage was just taking a really clear, simple game plan for me into the game. So just obviously the whole week you're taking in lots of information. The sort of emotional levels rise and they reach a peak when you're just about to run onto the pitch. But just having two or three really simple things that you can always revert back to and when you're on the pitch, if you make a mistake or if you score a wonder try, all right, how do you then reset and go and try and do that again? So quite simple strategies, but they worked really well. So yeah,
great. So I suppose at that start of the season, all that success started to snowball as well. And at the start of the year, it was announced that you were going to be part of the England setup, which must have been incredible for you. Do you want to just describe, first of all, how Johan broke it to you and the boys in the club, and then the emotions that kind of went with that?
Yeah, so it did like kind of come out of the blue. I mean, I was invited to like a one-day England camp around New Year. just to do some like assessments of us, like physically and stuff, physical assessments, and that went pretty well and stuff. But I wasn't expecting anything, and then. I think the announcement was something like 9 o'clock in the morning, so it was really early. But it just coincided with our team meeting, so I guess I just sort of assumed that was that. I'd have to try and wait for the next one, keep plugging away, and then we had the meeting as per. So just we're talking about our preparation for the next game, and then at the end of the meeting, Johan said, "Oh, I just want to congratulate." The sort of Italian guys for being selected for the Italian team. I think it was Jake Pelledri, and I also want to congratulate Ollie on being nominated for the England squad, which it was a pretty special thing to sort of actually genuinely find out about it in front of the team. I think it was sort of a combination of excitement and apprehension and things, but it was certainly an exhilarating way to find out.
Just going back to that kind of family aspect of it, I suppose everyone must have been chuffed for you.
Yeah, the messages were pretty intense. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It was a wonderful thing. But I think particularly because I had this season, I really felt like I'd sort of up to the level of dedication I was putting into my rugby. So it felt like it was all sort of finally worth it, but equally, like once I had a taste of that feeling, it makes you want to be there every single time. It really does. It's addictive.
When you did that first training session with the England team, was that an even bigger step up? What's the kind of attitude when you're around that group of coaching staff? How much did it differ? And was there more intensity, and did that play on your mentality at all?
It's palpable. Yeah, the difference in intensity. I mean, it's pretty intense. It is intense at Gloucester, but there is just an expectation that you know all your detail, that you're hot on absolutely everything when you're with England, as it should be. And so I think initially I just felt fortunate to be able to see that. And see how those guys operate and the levels that they're operating at, both on the pitch and also off the pitch. Like you always need to have role models, and obviously you then go and take what you see and do it your own way. But yeah, it opened up my eyes as to what you really need to do to be the best in the world. If I'm being honest, I think initially I was shitting myself.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like I said at the start, instinctively I'm quite a sort of shy person initially, and then once I get comfortable, I'll sort of come out of my shell a bit. So I think I was lucky in that the first thing that we did was a team social. So that was good fun. And
don't say too much. I don't want to get you in trouble, especially with the England camp.
Yeah. So it was.
But I bet that broke the ice for sure.
It did break the ice. Yeah, it was all very PC.
But so with that progression, I suppose you were the youngest kid in the squad there. You were 22 when you got to the training camp, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were you the youngest there? I
think there was myself, Joe Cockney-Singer, and Tom Curry were the sort of the sort of young trio from memory. So I guess that does in some way put a bit of added pressure on you, but equally it means that they do give you a bit of time to kind of acclimatise and get used to the environment and everything, which is good. All the guys were really helpful, and I was just able to ask as many questions as possible and try and learn. And that is one thing. It is very much a learning environment. That there's so many coaches that are helping you improve on various aspects of your game, and they're on you the whole time. So you're constantly thinking about, okay, how am I going to get better? How am I going to get better? How am I going to get better? And being in that environment is really infectious. It means when you come back to your club, you've got this sort of this standard that you now expect of yourself. And equally, it means that you want to be back there, where in that place where you know that all the guys there are growing, which is really cool.
So at the end of the last season, I want to take this moment to congratulate you because you won Young Player of the Year, which is amazing. Congratulations! But Is that your career highlight so far? What has been your favourite moment? That must have been top of the list.
It was very humbling. I think because it's voted for by the other players in the Premiership, which that there is something quite special about that. So no, that was definitely up there. But I think awards and accolades are always nice. But I think it's actually the moments when you're on the pitch that really do stick with you. When you've got the adrenaline pumping and things. And I think just because of the frustration that I'd been having over the sort of over that sort of 6-7 month period leading into the game, I scored my try of the season against Leicester. I think for me that day was the one that really stands out from last season, just because I had all this pent up energy and then to go out on the pitch and be able to express that was really amazing. And Kingston was properly rocking, so it was great. And actually and then on the back of that, I think although I haven't had a chance.
Ollie, you're late for the bus, bro.
Oh yeah.
Late for the bus.
What bus? I don't know. Yeah. I've got no idea. That's Val Pavaroskin's sense of humour, guys. No one's on the same wavelength. So I think any time you get selected for England, even though I haven't had a chance to play yet, I think just being in that environment is amazing.
Well, you're no stranger to the big stage now, playing for Gloucester and scoring, like you say, some amazing tries, and then that award at the end of the season. And we hope soon some amazing rugby for England, and no doubt your time will come for that. But you've also been involved with some pretty big fixtures before, notably to the 2006 FA Cup final in Cardiff.
Oh, yeah.
Please paint this picture. Yeah. This is a brilliant story.
So it was 2006, as you said, and it was the last FA Cup final at the Millennium Stadium, actually. It's called the Principality now, isn't it? And Liverpool playing West Ham. I'm a diehard West Ham fan, but somehow ended up being the Liverpool mascot. So that was a bit strange. But it was amazing. We got at the start of the game, we got to meet all the players. Steven Gerrard was captain on the day. He ended up actually scoring the goal that took it to extra time. So I should have stood on his toes or something. I had the opportunity, but alas, it wasn't to be. And I also got to meet Prince William, which was quite entertaining. And in fact, actually, although I was wearing a sort of full Liverpool kit and everything, I made the confession that I was a West Ham fan, and I actually showed him my West Ham top that was underneath the Liverpool top. so there was this 10-year-old kid that was a bit of a traitor, but he seemed to find it very funny. So
that's great. Am I correct in saying that maybe some of the Liverpool players may have seen your West Ham top underneath?
I think they did, yeah. And actually, after we'd sort of been out on the pitch and stuff, we then went up to our seats, and I was in the West Ham zone. So that everyone saw this kid in Liverpool kit come in, and then I was in the stand and just sort of literally ripped the top off and just threw it out, and showed the West Ham fan and sort of was holding the badge and everything, and there was a massive cheer in the area and stuff. It was really great.
That's awesome. Well, let's go back to rugby. What are your career goals for this season at Gloucester, and then let's have a look at, say, over the next 5 years, and then seeing out your career. Where do you see the direction of Ollie Thorley?
So I think in terms of this year, my focus is very much on the rugby itself, and I figure everything else beyond that will take care for itself, as long as you get that right. So I'm just focused on doing what I can to be the best player I can be.
Amazing.
It's as simple as that, really.
And then I suppose you've got to have that goal of England in the back of your mind.
Like I said previously, being in that environment, it's addictive. You want to be there, no matter what. like you want to be playing for at the top of the game, and in rugby that's international rugby, isn't it? So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about it. I'm thinking about it 24/7. But equally, I know that's the kind of if you say like an end goal rather than what's going to get you there. So yeah. As
you know, Headstrong has partnered with Restart Rugby, who are the official charity of the RPA, and they work very closely with a lot of the players, both playing currently and also who retired, transitioning out of playing rugby into retirement and what follows in their career. Knowing that playing rugby careers don't always last forever, and come mid-30s you kind of got to hang up the boots. Do you have a long-term approach in your life, and have you kind of thought about what it might be once you finish playing? Obviously you're only 23 and that's a long way to go, but do you ever think what you might want to do after?
So actually a friend of mine, he's a psychiatrist but also a coach, and he works at Cognacity, who provide the sort of mental health helpline for the RPA, which is funded for by Restart Rugby, and I've been working with him probably for the last 2 years on thinking about this, on thinking about how I can be a better rugby player, how and what I can do off the pitch. So it's something that I'm constantly thinking of, I mean, in terms of the short term at the moment, it's predominantly rugby based. I'd be lying if I said anything else. But no, like we talked about at the start with history and the fact that I was possibly going to be going off to university to read history. I'm looking at hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years starting a degree. And then thereafter, I haven't really got a plan.
That's good. Well, you're so young. You've got time to explore that, haven't you? I absolutely love food. That's don't we all?
Yeah, food is love, isn't it? So, yeah. And my dad sort of worked in the restaurant industry a bit. So I've got this sort of romantic ideal of one day setting up a restaurant or some kind of food related business. So that's one thing that's in the back of my mind. But
I'll come back in 5 years and see what the idea is then.
Yeah. See where that takes me. But I have actually started playing the piano, just because as rugby players, although it does take up a lot of our time, you do get downtime. And I've never really been someone to like always go out for a coffee and stuff, and or play FIFA or anything like that. So I like to keep myself busy off the pitch as well. So about maybe a year ago, I started learning the piano, and I've actually just sort of passed my grade 1, which is really exciting. So I'd never really played an instrument before, so I thought it's something I want to give a crack, and I'm pretty hooked actually. I really want to. So I want to progress that and see where I can go with the piano.
That's really good for you as well, for the training of the mind, as well. It's so good to be as well. You clearly seem so motivated and you love playing the piano. That's great as well. So that must be really good for your mentality.
It is. It helps balance your life a bit. You can sort of, when you're playing the piano, you completely step away from rugby. I mean, it probably helps your finger dexterity and everything, your coordination.
And it's another form of discipline.
It is another form of discipline, yeah. And music's such a wonderful thing. It makes you feel incredible, doesn't it? So to be able to then go and, even though at a very rudimentary level, produce that, it's incredibly satisfying.
So you spoke of that, your goal there, then I suppose, to further your piano career and your piano potential. Yeah. Is making the next World Cup a goal?
I mean, it's a long way off. It is a long way off, but you're gonna like if you're a rugby player in England and you've got aspirations to play for England, you're going to want to be in that next World Cup, aren't you? So 100%.
So we're kind of winding down here, but I've got to ask you the question: who is going to win the World Cup in Japan? Have you had a thought about the tables and how things line up?
I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, I've been training with the guys and stuff this summer and everything, and I really do feel like something exciting could happen with the England squad. And it'd be unpatriotic to say any other team. So
agreed.
So I'm going to go for England.
There we go. So I've got my final two questions. I ask these two questions to every one of my guests that comes on the podcast. The first one is, I know you're 23, but what piece of advice would you give young adults, younger than yourself and myself, that helps you stay focused and driven?
I think you've got to make sure you have a balance in your life. So I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm a bit of an obsessive personality, but I've always found that when I get more balance in my life, whether that's through piano, whether that's through having a few sort of beers with some of my friends, or whatever it might be, I always end up then doing better in rugby, or just generally feeling happier. So I think balance is a big thing. And for me that was also true when I was at school. For me it was really important to make sure that I got my grades and everything locked in before I then went on to pursue the rugby. So I think that would be certainly for any young rugby players or any young sportsmen coming through, is just make sure you still have fun, make sure you get your grades, and the sport will sort itself out if you're good enough. So
definitely stay in love with it for sure.
Yeah, stay in love with it, exactly.
Great. And my final question to you, Ollie, is what does the word headstrong mean to you?
So I think it means having composure, dedication and positive energy through the ups and downs. Yeah.
That's really nice. Very, very precise and succinct there. Ollie, thank you so much for giving up your time at the start of the season. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. Best of luck with this year. Hopefully we'll see you in an England shirt very, very soon out on the pitch.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully, Gloucester will win the title.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Lee. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.
Pleasure. Well, there we have it for this episode of Headstrong. A huge thank you to Ollie Thorley for taking time out at the beginning of the season to chat to me, to talk about his life and his experiences at Gloucester Rugby. Also, I'd just like to wish heaps of luck to the boys at Gloucester on their endeavours this season. So that is it again for this episode of Headstrong. If you've enjoyed it, please go rate it and subscribe, and please tell all your family and friends about it. I'd love to keep getting the message out there. Now I'm going to hand over to Damien Hopley to tell you a little bit more about my official partner for this series, Restart Rugby.
My name is Damien Hopley, Group Chief Executive of the Rugby Players Association. Restart is the official charity of the RPA, and the charity provides crucial support to current and former professional rugby players suffering from serious injury, illness or hardship. Since 2005, Restart has invested over 1.7 million into player welfare and support by funding medical treatment, rehabilitation or disability support, financial support and emotional support, by providing a 24/7 confidential counselling service, and we're the only body in English rugby that invests in mental health support. 1 in 4 people in the UK will be affected by mental illness in any year. Rugby players are no exception, and often the pressures and strains that act as a catalyst to mental health issues are magnified for professional athletes. Players often find it difficult to cope with the transition out of rugby, and the reality is that over 60% of players reported mental health issues post-retirement, and over 50% of players take 2 years or longer to be in control of their lives post-rugby. In 2008, the Rugby Players Association and Restart launched a 24/7 telephone helpline and counselling service to provide vital mental health support to those players and families that were facing struggles. 42 current and former players accessed the confidential counselling last year. More than 140 players have accessed the counselling service over the past 3 seasons. Every year, Restart spends up to £60,000 on our confidential counselling service to help support our players. Without support from donors and fundraisers, Restart would simply not be able to continue this vital support for our players. Sadly, these mental health issues can lead to devastating consequences. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under 45 in the UK, and rugby players are not immune. It's great to see the players talking more openly about their mental health struggles within rugby and after they finish playing. Thank you for all your support towards Restart. Without people like yourselves, we could not help players and their families in the way that we do, so thank you all very much.